Hello and welcome to Ever Chosen Minis. Today we're going to be doing a kit bash that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. Uh, ever since I started really getting into Warhammer, Skaven have always really been the thing that I thought was the most unique, and I've been drawn to it really hard. But I always kind of gravitated toward 40k as far as a game goes. So I think, like a lot of you, we kind of want the Skaven to be in the 41st millennium, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. This is a ton of really simple and easy to follow kit bashing, followed by a really easy paint scheme that I'm going to show you at the end. I'll just show you how to whip up these 40k Skaven so you can get them in your games on the table. Now to do these conversions, you're not going to need all too much. I just have a old Plague Monk, uh, basically sprue, along with a few Imperial bits that I have just in boxes from various other projects, getting stuff secondhand, asking friends if they don't want their sprue, etc. And you can also just get a full squad of the ADmech unit of your choice. Or in this instance, I'm using Scutari. This is going to be all you need. It's a perfect jumping off point. Other than that, it's just a little bit of glue and a little bit of green stuff here and there to make these work. So let's get into exactly what you need to do because it's real simple. As you can see here, I'm just clipping off the sprue, the body for the Plague Monk, and that's going to be kind of the basis. Now, I kind of go back and forth between using an ADmech head, which you do have to shave down a little bit and use a little bit more green stuff to kind of sculpt it into the body to make it look good. Or you can just use these Skaven heads on the sprue. You're going to want to mix that up, adds a lot of variety and interest to each model. And then the rest are pretty much just Imperial bits. So as you can see here, I have just the arms of the ADmech units here that I'm just going to glue on. They fit really well and they're to scale, so it doesn't look out of place at all. You can also throw on their backpack and then a few pouches here and there. These bits come from so many different sources, from Space Marines, AdMech, really just anything tactical will have a bunch of extra pouches that you can put on the belts. And as you can see here, it looks very, very convincing. It's a perfect blend between the Skaven body and the 40k bits that really just take it up a notch and blend it into the environment we're going for. And we're going to do a few different variations on this. There's different bits you can add, different types of backpacks. In a few of these, I'm using a few Astra Militarum weapons. They're very similar look to the AdMech weaponry. Here on this Lieutenant, you'll see there's like a robotic arm that I got from the Imperial Guard as well. And it just all comes together super easy, super well. And there'll be another way you can kind of kit bash these. I do this to add a lot of variety to the different models, and that's just head swapping a normal Skitarii um, body with a Skaven head. Now you do need to blend this in with some green stuff, and as you can see here, I just gently kind of touch it up with my sculpting tool and get it in place. And again, looks super convincing, and you can even add kind of green stuffed tails to the back. That's just going to give it more of that rat appearance, and it comes together super, super fast and easy. I think I did this unit at 10 within like 2 hours of kit bashing, which, 10 kit bash minis between getting all your bits out and stuff, that's really not too bad. Alright, and then for painting these, I'm going to go ahead and explain the steps I took, what paints I used. And it's a pretty quick paint scheme. I think it only took me about an hour or so to paint up this one model, which isn't too bad depending on the quality you want. You can skip a few steps for highlighting and stuff. If you have an airbrush, you might be able to get the cloaks done a little bit faster. There's a few ways to speed this up if that's something you're interested in. But just to get started here, we're just going to start by basing everything that we want brown. Here I am using chocolate brown. This is a Vallejo model color paint range. And I'm just putting this on the gun and the pants. And we're also going to base the rat that's kind of on his side with this along with his face. So those areas, we're going to do a quick coverage with this. And we're just trying to get our base coats in before we start doing a bunch of highlights. Next, we're just going to be trying to tackle his cloak. We're just going to be starting off. I'm using AK acrylic range here. This is extra dark green. And I think this is just a super nice base coat for a green. We are going to be punching this up quite heavily. So we're starting dark, and we're actually going to start just completely finishing the cloak here. The next color we use is another Vallejo paint. This one's just called flat green. It's a lot brighter, but not super bright. So depending on your preference for how saturated and bright you want this is dependent on how many of these highlights you want to go through. So as you can see here, gives it a pretty nice result already. It's a nice punch up, but we're going to kick that just a little bit higher. I am using Kraken Skin. This is a Army Painter War Paints line, and I just put this very scratchily over. It's kind of watered down, so it doesn't cover super well. So you're going to get kind of transparent and streaky effects with the paint when you use it like this. It doesn't cover super well this one, but it works to our advantage in this because what we want is a scratchy, worn, kind of raggedy texture, and just the paint naturally being kind of bad helps us with that. So I do a few passes of this over everything. You're going to want to do kind of extreme highlights on top, try to get a little bit more contrast in there. And it's going to give it this kind of like almost glowing, bright green, something that really screams Skaven to me. I always think kind of warp stone color whenever I think of them. So this is going to do in the cloak for us, and that can let us kind of turn our attention to some other bits here on the model. So we want to base coat the fleshy bits. This is done with a 50-50 mix. I used Vallejo harsh skin tone, and then I also mixed it with a little bit of familiar pink Army Painter Speed Paint. That's what kind of gives it that kind of bright, fleshy pink color that you see here on everything. And we're going to be highlighting that, kind of going up with just generic flesh tones. So I washed it a little bit with just watered down pink familiar just to get it in the recesses and darken it down. But then I come back um, with that pure skin tone from before. And I even mix in a little bit of warm flesh from Pro Acryl to highlight it even further. So these will look pretty bright, but you still want that underlying of pink. That's what gives it that kind of ratty um, look that you would want for a lot of this stuff. So really easy highlights. I go with really scratchy highlights, as you can see here on the tail. That just makes it way better as far as texture goes, and it's not that hard. I just do 2 passes of highlights on it to get it where it needs to be. And that kind of takes care of the fleshy bits. As far as highlighting the brown goes, what we want to be using here is Bagman's Glow. This is a base color from Citadel. It's really popular. It's actually one of their better paints. And you're just going to put this kind of on all the raised areas of the gun and pants just to highlight those up. So not too bad there. Moving on to the rat. I highlight all the fur, including his snout there. And we do this with a sea gray. It's a paint from AK. It's an acrylic line. And I just put this in 2 different layers. One's a little bit watered down, so it's not going to be as bright. And we just go back over one more time, just at the very tippy tops, and that's going to give it kind of a gradient on the fur. And you want to make sure that you don't get too much in the recesses. You really want that texture to shine through, that you want it to be fur. And so just be careful when you're applying that, and you should end up just fine. So that pretty much takes care of all of the base colors um, that we have for everything, but we do want to lead on to the metallics. So I'm only using 2 metallic paints here, super, super simple. We're using gunmetal from the War Painters War Paints, and we're just going to put that over the legs, the base, we have it on the antenna, and certain parts of the gun. And then for everything else, something that complements green really well and that also kind of screams Skaven is copper. They have a lot of copper constructs, and so we're going to be using something that kind of passes as copper. So I use a bronze from Vallejo, base coat everything as well. You could use, and I go back and forth depending on the model. I like to add a lot of variety in these kind of armies that are patchwork. You can also use true copper metallic from the Army Painters War Paints. I think both of those are great colors and they work really well for what we want to do here. And so we're going to be doing a few things to these metallics to get them to where we want to be. We want everything pretty much to be weathered um, and torn, just like the cloak, same concept. So what we're going to be doing here is adding a few decals if you want before you start kind of weathering. As you can see, we're going to be putting this on the shoulder and the cloak. Just going to add a little bit more detail to these. And then for the copper, I'm going to be taking Ducat Blue and really watering it down. You want this to flow like a wash by the time you're done watering it down. So it'll probably be like 2 or 3 parts water to 1 part paint. And you're just going to lightly brush this over all the copper. That's going to add a verdigris to it, and it's going to help sell the weathered effect that you would see on copper and bronze that you don't really get on normal metallics. Now for the gunmetal, we do the same thing, about 2 to 3 to 1 ratio of light rust from AK. And this is just going to go over all the other metallic bits. This is going to kind of give it, a rusty look, make that look more to kind of match. Now, a few kind of minor details here that you can do if you want to do the same basing. I do take Slaughter Red and put that over some of the armor panels just to add a little bit of color before I weather. You can make the armor panels on the base any color you want. Super easy to adjust that to whatever you want to see your rats on. And then just for the black bits like the cables, I just went with rubber black, base coated them, and then added a little bit of that Ducat blue from before to give it kind of a blue tint and brighten it up. And then I just run my brush along the ridges. ADmech have a lot of kind of ribbed pipes and cables, so it catches a lot of that texture really well. You just don't want to have too much on your brush when you do it, and it's going to highlight those up beautifully. Alright, and just like that, we are all done creating our Warhammer 40k Skaven. Really appreciate if you made it to the end of the video here. Really like showing off these cool ideas. I know with Skaventide coming out, a lot of people kind of have Skaven on the mind, so I thought this was just a fun project to kind of throw out there and give everyone, hopefully some inspiration for making their own, and just seeing what all cool things you can do if you are one of those people like me who wants Skaven brought into their games of 40k. But if you want, go ahead, like and subscribe. If you want to support the channel, we're really small, so any and everything helps so much. I would appreciate it greatly. And you have just a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching.